Did you know that you were close to never seeing this build? Literally, I'm not joking. Not because I'm not proud of it. I was just so tired by the time I finished this build. I did not have the energy for several weeks to even record or provide any kind of like narration to the actual build. It just took a lot out of me. But I'm so glad that I finished this. I think this is like one of the biggest builds I've ever done in like the history of me building sim builds. Basically what I'm creating is a old school New Orleans styled house that is supposed to be like a family multi-generational house, and the place I chose to build this in was in Forgotten Hollow, but I think I'm going to move it to a different world based on the aesthetics. But I wanted to share the process with you guys because I put a lot of work into it and it came out really well, and it would just be a shame if I didn't show you guys the process, and I would love to know what you think of it by the end. So because this is such a long build, I'm splitting this into a 3-part series. So this video is going to be how I built the structure of the house and also a little bit of the outer decoration, and then the next video we're going to be talking about the actual landscaping part of this build and why I chose to landscape it anyway, and then the last video will be about the actual interior design and the thought process behind that build. So let's get into the build. So to get the inspiration for this actual structure in the first place, I actually looked at some blueprints of old school New Orleans kind of mansions. Like those really big mansions are massive. I wanted to try and get the shape right because, as I said, this is the first time I've ever done a build like this. So I wanted to just have a reference of how the house should look, roughly, basically. And there are, from what I understand, from what I was researching, there's a lot of high walls, there's a lot of big grand spaces as well, and there's a lot of rooms as well, not just for bedrooms, but you have things like parlor rooms and everything else. So that's what I wanted to put into this build. One thing I noticed about this kind of old school build is that they have a lot of angled corners on the houses, and I think that's because they have a lot of bay windows. From what I researched, not all houses are like that, but especially if we're looking at that kind of New Orleans mansion kind of house, they do have bay windows in the build as well. So I wanted to try at least get 1 bay window. I think I ended up having 4 bay windows at the end, but I wanted to try and get at least 1 bay window in the build as well. So this process took a while. Just getting the structure right took a while. I definitely wanted to have like a main entrance area. I think it's called like a stair hall, or yeah, like it's called a staircase hall or something like that. That's the style. I wanted the house to have a staircase hall, so when you walk in you see this high walls and then you see the stairs going off on either side, and you have a glimpse into the upper level of the house. So that was the main thing that I tried to get down first, because I knew that was going to be the central like focal point. So if I didn't get that right, then everything else is going to go right. Especially when I was looking at some reference photos for the type of houses, like they seem to have grand staircases or a entrance basically that has an elaborate staircase. Unfortunately, from what I know, The Sims doesn't have any like spiral staircases or anything else, so I had to work with what I got. I kind of did an L-shape staircase. But yeah, the type of idea that I had for this build and the Sims family that would be in it is basically like a old money family, like people that come from old money, and probably they have like grandparents, parents, and the children, or maybe even the other great grandchildren in the house. That's the type of sim family I'm thinking of living here, because I want it to be, because it's inspired basically by New Orleans kind of styled houses. I want it to be not, how do I put it, not bougie, but bougie. That doesn't really make sense, does it? I don't want it to be bougie, but it's going to be bougie. But the family doesn't have to be overly bougie. You just need to know that they come from money. That's what I'm thinking for these type of houses and the Sims living in these houses. They're definitely coming from old school money. One thing I found really difficult were the platforms in the house, because I wanted the house to have different levels as well, because you'll see later on I'm building like a breakfast area as well in the build. But to have that elevated platform, it kept changing the main floor platform at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense, but it just got really frustrating because it's like every time I adjusted the platform, the rest of the house floor would raise up or raise down, and I just had to keep going back and forth trying to fix that. But eventually I got there. It was imperative for me as well to have an attic. I wanted the house to have a attic just because a lot of those old school places or those old school houses, they have attics. It's creepy, but they have had attics and they're usually quite big and store a lot of stuff. So it was really important for me to do that. I wanted the rooms to be split up. So there would be, what I was envisioning was that there would be a main living area, probably where like the kitchen and that kind of stuff would be, but then you'd have a front room or a social front room area where the family would be. Then you'd also have a parlor as well on the other side as well. And that was, I was thinking that could be like where, especially because if it's old school kind of like, not necessarily, it's not always the same in New Orleans, but New Orleans is known to have that kind of mystical element. So I was thinking in the parlor there could be a place where people obviously do business and talk and everything else, but it's also a place where you could like probably get your fortune read and everything else and all that kind of stuff. That's what I wanted to happen in the parlor. So I wanted to make sure there was a parlor there. The attic, I didn't really know what else I wanted to do with it, to be quite honest. I know it had to store stuff in, and I think when I'm playing with the family in the house, I'll probably be storing other stuff in there, but I just wanted to make sure that space was at the top. And there is a bit of a jump, guys, later on in this video because my recording for some reason broke randomly while I was recording. So while I was building, it broke. So there is a little bit of a jump where I've done the house and I'm now on the balcony area. So what I wanted to make sure, because what I've seen in a lot of these houses, which is beautiful, is that they have balconies and they have like a porch bit that goes around all the house. I don't know if that's the right term, but they have a porch bit where you can walk all the way around the house. And in a lot of the houses, they have a balcony on the top floor as well that goes all the way around the house. So I really, really wanted to make sure I get that down. That didn't take as long because the structure was already in place, but it was a bit finicky in terms of the trimmings and whatnot, because sometimes the trimmings would extend to places that I didn't want it to extend. But yeah, I wanted to make sure there was like a balcony on the top floor, top level as well. And I just feel like that would be a great place for like the family to go and chill, where they could have tea or have something out there. Also, I like to do a lot of like cinematic kind of shots with Sims as well, so I think that would be good as well to have that balcony there so I could do some cinematic kind of shots. Now I just want to cover the main reason why the house has a bluish tinge and why specifically the decking is blue and the ceiling is blue as well. That's because a lot of these old school kind of New Orleans houses, there is a thing called haint blue, as in a color, and it was believed, from what I've researched, it was believed that haint blue would either ward off or confuse spirits so they wouldn't come into the houses. Now, you know me, it's Black History Month when I'm posting this in February. I mainly wanted to do this type of house to pay like homage to another form of African diasporan community, basically, that's obviously not in the UK but in the US. I think that kind of superstition or mythology or belief system, that was actually linked to the Gullah Geechee culture, from what I remember. They thought that haint blue, or they believed that haint blue would ward off spirits, because apparently spirits wouldn't be able to pass things like water or big sky areas. So that's why it was the color blue. And I just really wanted to have that kind of element in the house structure itself. I just wanted to incorporate into that. And actually, when I started to look at the actual build at night, it looked very haunting, to be honest. And I don't know if that was blue, but it did look very haunting. Anyway, I don't want to ramble too much, guys, so I'm going to leave it there. The next episode, I'm going to be talking about the actual landscaping part of this build. And yeah, let me know in the comments below if you want me to build any other kind of builds relating to Black historical stuff, or just any other things I should try. Give me some ideas in the comments below. I hope you like this video. If you got this far, like, subscribe, all that goodness. I'm going to catch you in the next one, guys. See you later. Bye.